"You do not belong here." The words cut through the ceremonial hall like a blade, sharp and final. Alara felt every eye in the grand chamber turn toward her, hundreds of pack members dressed in their finest ritual garments, all staring at the girl in the simple gray dress who stood at the back of the line. Lady Seraphina had spoken loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice dripping with the kind of casual cruelty that only comes from a lifetime of unquestioned privilege. "This ceremony is for wolves of lineage, not for orphans who cannot even shift." The laughter that followed was not loud, but it was there, rippling through the crowd like poison spreading through water. Alara wanted to disappear, to sink into the polished marble floor and cease to exist, but her feet would not move. She had been summoned here by royal decree, the ancient law stating that all unmated wolves between 18 and 25 must present themselves at the awakening ceremony. No exceptions. She had not wanted to come. She had known this would happen, but the law was the law, and defying it meant exile or worse. The awakening ceremony happened once every decade, a sacred ritual where young wolves would touch the ancestral stone and receive the blessing of the first ones, the ancient lichens who had founded their race. For most, it meant a brief warmth, a whisper of approval, perhaps a glimpse of their true potential. For a select few, it meant power, recognition, a place of honor in the pack, hierarchy. For Alara, it was supposed to mean nothing at all. She was wolfless, or so everyone believed. 22 years old, and she had never shifted, never felt the call of the moon, never experienced the primal rush that every other wolf described with such reverence. The healers had examined her as a child and declared her broken, damaged somehow, a genetic anomaly that happened sometimes in wolves with no known parentage. She had grown up in the pack orphanage, working in the kitchens and gardens, invisible to everyone except when they needed someone to mock or blame. "Perhaps we should simply skip her," Seraphina continued, turning to face the raised platform where the ancestral stone sat, a massive obsidian monolith that seemed to absorb all light around it. "It would save us all the embarrassment of watching her fail." Seraphina was everything Alara was not. Tall where Alara was small, golden-haired where Alara was dark, confident where Alara was uncertain. She was the daughter of Alpha Cornelius, ruler of the Northern Territories, and she had been promised to King Alpha Daemon since birth. Today was supposed to be her coronation as much as her awakening, the moment when she would touch the stone and prove to the entire kingdom that she was worthy to stand beside the most powerful Alpha in 500 years. Her white and silver gown caught the light from 1,000 candles, making her look like something divine, something untouchable. Next to her, Alara felt like a shadow, something that existed only in the absence of light. "The law is clear, Lady Seraphina." The voice that spoke was deep, resonant, and it made every wolf in the room straighten instinctively. King Alpha Daemon stood from his throne, and even from across the massive hall, Alara could feel the weight of his presence. He was younger than she had expected, perhaps 30, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything they looked at. He wore the traditional ceremonial armor of the Alpha King, black leather and silver plates, etched with the symbols of every pack under his rule. And on his head sat the crown of fangs, forged from the teeth of the first Alpha. Every unmated wolf will participate, no exceptions. His eyes found Alara across the distance, and for just a moment, she thought she saw something there, something that made her breath catch. But then he looked away, and she decided she had imagined it. Seraphina's smile never wavered, but Alara saw the flash of irritation in her eyes. "Of course, my king. I live to serve the ancient traditions." She moved toward the stone with practiced grace, every step calculated to show off the elegant lines of her body, the way her dress moved like water around her. The high priestess, an ancient she-wolf with silver hair and ceremonial robes, stood beside the ancestral stone with her hands raised. Lady Seraphina of the Northern Territories, daughter of Alpha Cornelius, descended from the line of Moon Whisper, stepped forward, and receive the blessing of the first ones. The hall fell completely silent as Seraphina approached the stone. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, the confirmation that she was destined to be queen. Seraphina placed both hands on the obsidian surface, and immediately the stone began to glow. Soft white light pulsed from within it, spreading up her arms like living vines, and the watching wolves murmured their approval. It was a strong response, stronger than most received. The light grew brighter, bathing Seraphina in an ethereal radiance that made her look like a goddess. She tilted her head back, eyes closed, a serene smile on her lips. The high priestess began to chant in the old language, words that Alara did not understand, but that resonated in her bones anyway. The light reached Seraphina's chest, hovering over her heart, and then suddenly stopped. The glow held for a moment, pulsing uncertainly, and then began to fade. Seraphina's eyes snapped open, confusion flickering across her perfect features. The stone was going dark again, the light retreating back into the obsidian as if it had changed its mind. "What is happening?" Alpha Cornelius stood from his seat beside the king, his voice sharp with concern. The high priestess looked troubled, her ancient eyes studying the stone with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. "The stone has given its blessing, but not its mark. She is accepted, but not chosen." A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. Not chosen meant that while Seraphina was acknowledged as powerful and worthy, she was not the one the ancestors had selected for some greater purpose. It was not a rejection, but it was not the triumphant confirmation everyone had expected either. Seraphina stepped back from the stone, her composure cracking just slightly, a tightness around her mouth that spoke of barely controlled fury. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. The ceremony continued with the other young wolves approaching the stone one by one. Some received a warm glow of approval, others barely a flicker. None received the mark that Seraphina had been denied, the legendary symbol that would brand itself onto the skin of the truly chosen. Alara watched from her place at the back of the line, her heart pounding harder with each wolf that finished. She did not want to do this. She did not want to stand before hundreds of people and have the stone confirm what everyone already knew, that she was nothing, nobody, a mistake of nature that should never have been born. But the line kept moving forward, and eventually there was nowhere left to hide. Alara, orphan of the eastern quarters, no known lineage, step forward. The high priestess's voice was not unkind, but it was matter of fact, stating her worthlessness as if it were just another detail to be recorded. Alara forced her legs to move, climbing the 3 steps to the platform where the stone waited. Up close, it was even more intimidating, easily 3 times her height, and wide as a house. The surface was smooth but not reflective, absorbing light like a void. She could feel heat coming from it, or maybe cold. She could not tell which. Her hands trembled as she raised them. "Do we really have to watch this?" Someone muttered from the crowd, loud enough to be heard. "Just let her touch it and move on. We all know. Nothing will happen." Alara placed her palms against the stone, and the world exploded. The sensation was not gradual like it had been for the others. It was instantaneous, overwhelming, a force that slammed into her with the violence of a tidal wave. Her vision went white, then black, then filled with colors she did not have names for. She heard screaming and realized distantly that it was coming from her own throat, but she could not stop. The stone was not glowing. It was burning, pulsing, with light so intense that wolves in the front rows threw up their arms to shield their eyes. But this was not the soft white light that had greeted the others. This was crimson, shot through with veins of gold, ancient and terrifying and utterly wrong. "Get her away from it!" someone shouted, but Alara could not move. Her hands were fused to the stone, or the stone was fused to her. She could not tell the difference anymore. Power was pouring into her body, too much power, more than any vessel could possibly hold. She felt something inside her chest crack open, some door that had been sealed shut her entire life, and behind it was not emptiness, but an inferno. Her wolf was waking up. No, not waking up. Being born. It had never been asleep or broken or missing. It had been imprisoned, locked away behind walls so thick that not even she had known it existed. And now those walls were shattering, crumbling like paper in a firestorm. And what emerged was not gentle or small or weak. The stone began to shake, vibrations spreading through the floor, making the candles flicker and the walls groan. Cracks appeared on the obsidian surface, thin lines of light spiderwebbing out from where Alara's hands pressed. The high priestess stumbled backward, her eyes wide with something that looked like terror. "Impossible," she whispered. The beast is waking." And then the stone split open. Not broke, not crumbled, but opened like a door, like a mouth, like a prison releasing. Something that had been contained for far too long. A roar emerged from within it, a sound so deep and primal that it bypassed the ears entirely and resonated directly in the chest, in the bones, in the very soul. It was the voice of something ancient beyond measure, something that predated their civilization, their kingdom, perhaps their species itself. The light exploded outward in a shockwave that sent wolves sprawling, knocked over columns, extinguished every candle in the hall. In the Yaum, sudden darkness, two massive eyes opened inside the stone, glowing with that same crimson and gold light. They were not wolf eyes. They were too large, too aware, too filled with an intelligence that felt almost alien. And they were looking directly at Alara. A presence filled her mind, vast and overwhelming, pressing against her consciousness like an ocean trying to fit into a cup. She felt it examining her, peeling back layers of her being that she had not known existed, reading her memories, and her fears, and her deepest hidden dreams. And then, impossibly, she felt it recognize her. Finally. The voice spoke directly into her mind, but she knew somehow that everyone in the hall could hear it too. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old, but something beyond such categories. The daughter of the Forsaken bloodline has returned. The cycle begins anew. Alara's body lifted off the ground, suspended in the air by pure force of will, or magic, or something she had no name. 4. The light surrounded her, sinking into her skin, burning patterns across her arms and shoulders and back. She looked down and saw symbols appearing on her flesh, ancient runes that glowed with inner fire, marking her in ways that could never be hidden or removed. The mark of the chosen. But not just any chosen. This was something else. Something that made the high priestess fall to her knees and made Alpha Cornelius go pale as death. King Alpha Daemon was the only one still standing. His eyes locked on Alara with an intensity that she could feel even through the chaos. His beast was responding to something. She could see it in the way his eyes flickered between human and wolf, the way his hands clenched and unclenched as if fighting for control. The mate bond snapped into place between them like a physical chain, sudden and undeniable, and absolutely catastrophic in its timing. She felt it wrap around her heart, felt the pull toward him, felt her newly awakened wolf surge forward, with desperate recognition. Mine. The word echoed in her head, and she did not know if it came from her wolf, or from the ancient presence still examining her, or from Daemon himself. But she felt him feel it too. Saw the exact moment the bond hit him. Saw his careful control crack just slightly. No. Seraphina's voice cut through the moment like broken glass. She was standing now, her beautiful face twisted with fury and disbelief. This is some kind of trick, some dark magic. She cannot be chosen. She is nobody. She is nothing. But even as she spoke, her father placed a hand on her arm, his expression grave. He knew what this meant. They all knew what this meant. The ancestral beast did not make mistakes. If it had chosen Alara, marked her with the symbols of the Forsaken bloodline, then everything they thought they knew about lineage and power and destiny was wrong. Alara finally fell back to the ground, her legs giving out beneath her. She collapsed on the platform, gasping for air, her entire body feeling like it had been remade from the inside out. The marks on her skin had stopped glowing, but they were still there, visible, undeniable. The stone had gone quiet again, the massive eyes closing, but she could still feel the presence lurking inside it, watching, waiting. Her wolf was there now, fully present in her mind for the first time in her life, and it was not small, or weak, or broken. It was enormous, powerful, and absolutely furious at having been locked away for so long. "We are not safe here," her wolf growled. "They will try to kill us." The high priestess approached slowly, reverently, her ancient face filled with awe and fear in equal measure. "Child, do you know what you are?" Her voice shook slightly. Alara shook her head, still trying to breathe, still trying to process what had just happened. "Speak it, priestess." King Alpha Daemon's voice was hard, commanding. "Tell us all what the marks mean." The old woman turned to face the assembled crowd, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "These are the marks of the first daughter, the original bloodline from which all Lycans descended. It was believed extinct, destroyed in the Purge 300 years ago when the royal houses consolidated power. But the prophecy spoke of a return, a child hidden in plain sight, who would awaken when the kingdom needed her most. Prophecy is just stories old women tell to feel important." Seraphina spat, but there was panic in her eyes now. She probably used some kind of spell, some forbidden magic to fake this. Alpha Cornelius silenced his daughter with a look. "The ancestral beast cannot be deceived, Seraphina. You know this. If it has chosen her, then she is what the priestess claims, regardless of how impossible that seems." He turned to Daemon, and Alara saw something pass between the two alphas, some understanding or agreement that had been made long before tonight. However, the marriage contract between our houses still stands. The politics have not changed, even if the girl is marked. Daemon's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. Alara felt the mate bond pulse between them, felt his wolf raging against the decision, even as his human side accepted the necessity. The ceremony will continue as planned. Lady Seraphina and I will be wed at the next full moon. Each word felt like a knife twisting in Alara's chest, and she saw Seraphina's triumphant smile return. But Daemon was not finished speaking. However, the laws regarding those marked by the ancestral beast are also clear. Alara will be given quarters in the royal wing, protection under my personal guard, and all rights and privileges of the chosen. No one is to harm her or interfere with her training. Is that understood? The way he said it left no room for argument, but Alara could see the fury in Seraphina's eyes, the calculation in Alpha Cornelius's expression. They would follow the letter of the law, but that did not mean they would accept her. That did not mean they would let her live if they could find a way around the king's protection. "Mine," her wolf growled again, staring at Daemon with possessive intensity. "He is ours. The bond pulls. We must claim him." But Alara knew it was not that simple. He was promised to another. He was a king with responsibilities that went beyond personal desire. And she was just an orphan who had somehow become the center of a power struggle she did not understand. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, terror, and overwhelming change. Alara was moved from her tiny servant's room in the orphanage to a suite in the royal wing that was larger than any space she had ever inhabited. The rooms were decorated in deep blues and silvers, with windows that overlooked the royal gardens and furniture that looked too expensive to touch. Servants she had worked alongside for years now bowed when they saw her, their eyes filled with fear or resentment or carefully hidden curiosity. She was given new clothes, fine dresses in rich fabrics that felt strange against her skin, and a personal attendant, a young she-wolf named Iris, who treated her with careful politeness that felt more like fear. But the worst part was the isolation. Despite being surrounded by people, Alara had never felt more alone. The other young wolves who had been at the ceremony avoided her, whispering when she passed, falling silent. when she entered a room. The older pack members regarded her with suspicion, as if she were some kind of threat, something dangerous that had infiltrated their midst. And Seraphina made sure Alara understood exactly where she stood. She encountered the future queen in the gardens 3 days after the ceremony, surrounded by her circle of noble ladies, all of them dressed in perfect gowns with perfect hair and perfect smiles that did not reach their eyes. "Oh, how lovely to see you. Adapting so well to your new circumstances." Seraphina's voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes were cold. "I do hope you are not getting too comfortable. After all, marks fade, prophecies are misinterpreted, and accidents happen so easily in a place as large as the palace." Her ladies laughed, the sound like wind chimes made of ice. Alara said nothing, just tried to move past them, but Seraphina stepped into her path. "You should leave while you still can. Go somewhere far away where no one knows." "What happened?" "I will even give you gold, enough to start a new life. Because if you stay, if you continue to embarrass me with your presence, there will be consequences." "Is that a threat, Lady Seraphina?" The voice came from behind them, and they all turned to see King Alpha Daemon standing at the garden entrance. He was dressed casually in training leathers, his hair still damp from exertion, but the power that radiated from him made every wolf present immediately submit, bowing their heads. Instinctively. All except Alara, whose wolf surged forward at the sight of him, making her body heat and her heart race. The mate bond thrummed between them, visible to her now as a golden thread that connected their souls, pulling tight with desperate need. Seraphina recovered quickly, dropping into an elegant curtsy. "My king, I was simply offering assistance to our guest. I worry about her adjusting to palace life. Your concern is noted and dismissed." Daemon's voice was flat, emotionless. "Alara is under my direct protection. Any harm that comes to her, any threat made against her, will be considered an act of treason against the crown. I trust I am being clear." The temperature in the garden seemed to drop several degrees. Seraphina's smile never wavered, but Alara saw the fury flash in her eyes before she hid it. "Perfectly clear, my king. If you will excuse me, I have wedding preparations to attend to." She swept past him with her ladies following like a flock of vicious birds, leaving Alara alone with Daemon. The silence that followed was suffocating. The mate bond was screaming at her to move closer, to touch him, to claim what was hers. But she forced herself to stand still, to wait for him to speak first. "You should not wander the gardens alone," he finally said, his eyes not quite meeting hers. "Until we understand what your awakening means, there will be those who see you as a threat." Alara found her voice, though it came out smaller than she intended. "I did not ask for this. I did not want any of this." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw the struggle in his eyes. "I know, but destiny rarely asks permission." He took a step closer, then stopped himself, hands clenching as if fighting the urge to reach for her. "The bond, do you feel it?" She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Of course she felt it. It was torture, having him so close and yet completely untouchable. He belonged to another woman, was promised, would be wed within weeks. "It is a complication we cannot afford." His voice was rough. "The alliance with the Northern Territories is essential to maintaining peace. Without it, we risk civil war." "Then why protect me?" Alara asked. "Why not just let them kill me quietly and solve your problem?" Daemon's eyes flashed wolf gold, a growl rumbling in his chest. "Because that is not who I am. Because the laws are clear. Because my beast would tear apart anyone who tried to harm you, and I am not certain I could stop it even if I wanted to." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. "This is an impossible situation. I will honor my commitment to Seraphina because my people need me to, but I will also protect you because I must. That is all I can offer." It should have been enough. It should have been more than someone like her ever expected. But the mate bond pulsed with rejection, with pain, with the knowledge that they were supposed to be together, and politics was keeping them apart. I understand, Ilara whispered, even though she did not, even though it felt like her heart was being torn in two. Damon turned to leave, then paused. There is something you should know. The Forsaken bloodline, your lineage, it was not destroyed by accident. It was systematically eliminated because the power it held threatened every ruling house in the kingdom. Your ancestors could do things other wolves cannot, things that are still not fully understood. If that power awakens in you fully, you will become a target for every alpha who fears what you might become. He met her eyes. I will protect you as much as I can, but you need to learn to protect yourself. Training begins tomorrow at dawn. Do not be late. The training grounds were empty when Ilara arrived the next morning, the sun just beginning to paint the sky pink and gold. She wore simple clothes, leather pants and a loose tunic, her dark hair pulled back. Her wolf was restless, pacing inside her mind, eager to be released, eager to explore the power that had been locked away for so long. A figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the yard, and Ilara tensed before recognizing the high priestess. The old woman moved with surprising grace, her silver hair gleaming in the early light. You came. Good. Many in your position would hide, would try to pretend the awakening never happened. She gestured for Ilara to follow her to the center of the training ground. I do not understand what is happening to me, Ilara admitted. Why now? Why did my wolf never appear before? The priestess studied her with those ancient, knowing eyes. Because someone went to great lengths to ensure it did not. When I examined you after the ceremony, I found traces of suppression magic, old and powerful, woven into your very essence from birth. Someone knew what you were and sealed your wolf away to hide you. Ilara felt cold dread settle in her stomach. Who? Who would do that? The priestess shook her head. That is what we must discover. But whoever they were trying to protect you. The Forsaken bloodline was hunted to extinction because the other royal houses feared their power. Your ancestors did not just shift, child. They could merge fully with their beasts, become something between wolf and human. Something faster, stronger, more deadly than any normal lichen. The priestess is correct. Another voice joined them, and Ilara turned to see a tall, scarred wolf approaching. He was older, perhaps 50, with gray streaking his dark hair and eyes that had seen too much violence. My name is Marcus, and I am the king's weapons master. I have been tasked with training you in combat, should you need to defend yourself. He looked her up and down with obvious skepticism. Though I will be honest, I have never trained someone with no shifting experience. This may be a very short lesson. Ilara bristled at his tone. I can learn. Marcus smiled, but it was not unkind. We shall see. Show me your wolf. Shift. Ilara closed her eyes, reaching for that presence inside her mind. Her wolf came forward eagerly, desperately, freedom so close after 22 years of imprisonment. The shift hit her like a lightning strike, fast and brutal, and nothing like the gentle transformation she had seen others perform. Pain lanced through every bone as they cracked and reformed, as her spine elongated and her face pushed forward into a muzzle. She heard herself scream, but the sound came out as a howl, long and mournful and filled with rage. When it was finished, she stood on 4 legs, panting, her vision sharper and her sense of smell overwhelming. But something was wrong. She looked down at her paws and saw they were too large, her fur too dark, almost black with those strange golden streaks running through it. Marcus had gone very still, his hand moving slowly toward the sword at his belt. The high priestess gasped, taking a step back. Impossible. She is showing the merge already, and she has only just awakened. Ilara did not understand what they meant until she caught her reflection in the water trough nearby. She was not fully wolf. Her body was larger than any normal wolf, more powerful, with a shape that was not quite right. Her front paws could almost be called hands, with elongated fingers tipped with razor claws. Her face was more predatory, her teeth longer. She looked like something out of a nightmare, something that should not exist. And she felt incredible. The power that thrummed through her body was intoxicating, addictive, more than she had ever imagined possible. "Shift back! Now!" Marcus commanded, his voice hard. Alara tried, reaching for her human form, but her wolf did not want to let go. It wanted to run, to hunt, to finally experience the freedom it had been denied. She felt panic rising as she struggled for control, felt her wolf pushing back against her, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she might be trapped in this form forever. "Alara," the voice cut through her panic like a blade. King Alpha Daemon stood at the entrance to the training grounds, his eyes locked on her transformed state. "Come back. Your human side is stronger than your wolf. You control it, not the other way around." She focused on his voice, on the mate bond that glowed brighter in this form, on the feeling of her human body, like a memory she was trying to recall. Slowly, painfully, she pulled herself back, forcing the shift to reverse. She collapsed naked on the ground, gasping, her body covered in sweat and trembling with exhaustion. Someone threw a cloak over her, and she wrapped it around herself gratefully. Daemon was crouched beside her, his hand hovering near her shoulder but not quite touching, as if he did not trust himself to make contact. That was incredibly dangerous. A new wolf should never attempt the merge form. You could have lost yourself completely. His voice was rough with concern that he could not quite hide. Alara looked up at him, still trying to catch her breath. "I did not mean to. It just happened. My wolf is so strong, so angry about being locked away. I can barely control it." Daemon's jaw tightened. "Then that is what you will learn. Control. Because if you cannot master your beast, someone will eventually use that against you." If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Alara's life. She trained from dawn until dusk, learning to shift smoothly, learning to fight in both forms, learning to access the merge form without losing herself to the beast within. Marcus was a brutal teacher, never satisfied, always pushing her harder, but she could see the grudging respect growing in his eyes as she improved. The High Priestess taught her the history of her bloodline, the ancient magic that ran through her veins, the responsibilities that came with such power. And through it all, she was constantly aware of Daemon's presence, even when he was not physically near her. The mate bond grew stronger every day, more insistent, more painful in its unfulfilled promise. She saw him in the halls sometimes, always surrounded by advisors or guards, always busy with the endless responsibilities of ruling a kingdom. He would glance at her as she passed, just a brief meeting of eyes, but that look contained entire conversations they could not have. She felt his wolf reaching for hers through the bond, felt his struggle to maintain distance when everything in his nature screamed to claim her. And she hated Seraphina with an intensity that frightened her, hated the way the other woman touched Daemon's arm possessively, hated the wedding preparations that seemed to consume the entire palace, hated most of all that she had no right to feel this way, because he was never supposed to be hers in the first place. Seraphina's attempts to make Alara's life miserable grew more creative as the wedding approached. Poisoned food that Alara's heightened senses detected just in time. A training accident that was clearly deliberate. Rumors spread through the palace that Alara was using dark magic to seduce the king, that she had faked the awakening ceremony, that she was actually a spy sent by enemy packs. None of it stuck, but the constant barrage wore on her. Her only real friend was Iris, her attendant, who proved to be more than just a servant. The young she-wolf had been assigned to watch her, Alara suspected, but had instead become genuinely loyal, helping her navigate the deadly politics of court life. "You need to be careful tonight," Iris warned as she helped Alara dress for the pre-wedding celebration, a massive feast that would host every alpha in the kingdom. "Lady Seraphina has been meeting with her father in private for hours. They are planning something." Alara looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The dress Iris had chosen was deep emerald green, elegant, but simple, and it made her newly awakened wolf eyes seem to glow. The marks on her arms were visible, the ancient runes that proclaimed her lineage, and she had stopped trying to hide them. Let them plan. I have done nothing wrong. I have kept my distance from the king as requested. I have caused no trouble. You exist, Iris said bluntly. That is trouble enough for someone like Seraphina. She knows about the mate bond. Everyone knows. They can see it in the way the king looks at you. The way his control slips just slightly when you are near. She knows that if you were not here, his wolf would eventually accept her. But with you present, she will always be second choice, and she cannot bear that. Alara felt tears prick her eyes, but refused to let them fall. He is going to marry her. In 3 days, he will stand before the entire kingdom and pledge himself to her. The bond does not matter. Duty comes first. Iris squeezed her shoulder gently. The heart is not so easily commanded. Not even by a king. Come, we should not be late. The great hall was magnificent, decorated with thousands of flowers and candles, long tables laden with enough food to feed an army. Every important alpha in the kingdom was present, dressed in their finest, all gathered to celebrate the union that would unite the two most powerful houses and secure peace for generations. Alara was seated far from the head table, tucked between minor nobles who barely acknowledged her presence, but she had a clear view of where Daemon sat with Seraphina at his right hand. The future queen was radiant in gold and white, playing her role perfectly, laughing at Daemon's words, touching his hand with easy familiarity. And Daemon was the perfect host, charming and attentive, every inch the powerful king. But Alara could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept drifting toward where she sat, the way his wolf prowled restlessly beneath his skin. The feast progressed with speeches and toasts, with music and dancing, with all the ceremony expected of such an occasion. Alara tried to make herself small, to be invisible the way she had been her entire life before the awakening, but she could feel eyes on her constantly, wolves whispering behind their hands, judging, speculating, waiting for something to happen. The mate bond pulsed with painful intensity, and her wolf was going mad being so close to Daemon yet unable to approach. Mine, it kept insisting. Ours. Why does he sit with her? When we are here, make him see. Make him choose. I propose a toast. Alpha Cornelius stood, his powerful voice carrying across the hall. To my daughter Seraphina, who will soon be queen, and to King Alpha Daemon, who has proven himself wise in choosing duty over fleeting desire. The words were pointed, deliberately cruel, and Alara felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Her face burned with humiliation, but she kept her expression neutral, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her pain. Daemon's hand tightened around his goblet, his knuckles going white, but he raised it in acknowledgement of the toast. Seraphina smiled triumphantly. However, Cornelius continued, his eyes finding Alara across the crowded hall. There is still the matter of the orphan who claims the Forsaken bloodline. Many here have expressed concerns about the validity of her awakening. After all, it is unprecedented for someone with no known parents to suddenly manifest such legendary power. He paused for effect. I propose a trial. Let her prove before the assembled alphas that she truly carries the blood of the first daughter. Let her demonstrate power that matches the marks she bears. And if she cannot, let us acknowledge that perhaps the awakening was a fluke, a misunderstanding, and that the marks should be removed so she can return to her proper place. The hall erupted in murmurs, wolves arguing for and against the proposal. Alara's heart was racing, panic clawing at her throat. A trial meant combat, meant shifting and fighting, meant exposing herself to potential injury or death, because trials were rarely gentle affairs. The laws do not require one marked by the ancestral beast to prove themselves. Daemon's voice cut through the noise, cold and hard. Cornelius, you overstep. But the Alpha of the Northern Territories smiled. spreading his hands innocently. "I meant no disrespect, Your Majesty. I simply thought to give the girl a chance to silence her detractors. Surely, if her bloodline is as powerful as claimed, a simple demonstration would be no hardship." It was a trap, and Alara knew it. If she refused, it would be taken as proof that she was a fraud. If she accepted and failed, she would be branded a liar, and likely executed. But if she accepted and succeeded, she would only make Seraphina and Cornelius hate her more. There was no winning this situation. "I accept." The words were out of her mouth before she could stop them, before her rational mind could intervene. Her wolf had spoken for her, pride and fury overriding caution. "I will demonstrate my power, if that is what is required to satisfy the concerns of the Alphas." She stood, meeting Cornelius's eyes across the hall. "Name your trial." Damon was on his feet instantly, and she could feel the rage rolling off him in waves. "This is unnecessary and potentially dangerous. I forbid it." But Alara shook her head, speaking directly to him for the first time in weeks. "With respect, Your Majesty, this is my choice. If I hide behind your protection, the questions will never stop. Let me prove myself, once and for all." She saw the conflict in his eyes, saw his wolf snarling at the idea of her putting herself in danger, but she also saw him recognize the truth in her words. He could not protect her from everything, and the court would never fully accept her unless she earned their respect. "Very well." Cornelius looked pleased, which immediately made Alara regret her decision. "The trial will be simple. In the old ways, the strength of a wolf was measured by their ability to best the pack's greatest warrior in single combat. Marcus is our weapons master, a decorated soldier, and one of the strongest wolves in the kingdom. If you can last 10 minutes against him in the combat ring without yielding or falling unconscious, you will have proven your worth." He smiled coldly. "Of course, if you wish to withdraw, no one will think less of you. It is a daunting challenge for someone who only awakened a few weeks ago." Marcus had gone very still at the head table, his scarred face unreadable. Alara knew he had been holding back during her training, teaching her rather than trying to defeat her. But in a formal trial, he would not pull his punches. He would come at her with everything he had, because to do otherwise would be an insult to both of them. 10 minutes might as well be 10 hours. "I accept the terms," Alara heard herself say. The hall buzzed with excitement. Wolves already placing bets, already anticipating the violence to come. Damon looked like he wanted to argue, but the challenge had been issued and accepted. To interfere now would undermine her and make her look weak. He could only watch, along with everyone else, as the fate that had been set in motion played out. The combat ring was prepared quickly, a circular space in the center of the great hall, marked out with ceremonial stones. All the tables were pushed back to give the assembled alphas a clear view. Alara was given time to change into fighting leathers, her hands shaking as she laced up the reinforced armor. This was insane. She had been training for less than a month. Marcus had been fighting for decades. The high priestess found her in the changing room, her ancient face grave. "Child, you do not have to do this. There is no shame in acknowledging you are not ready." But Alara shook her head. "If I back down now, they will never stop testing me. I would rather die proving I belong than live as a coward." The priestess sighed. "You have your ancestors' pride, for better or worse. Then I will tell you this. The Forsaken bloodline's greatest strength was not just physical power, but the ability to merge consciousness with their beasts. Most wolves suppress their animal side, control it, dominate it. Your ancestors did the opposite. They became partners with their wolves, two minds acting as one. If you can achieve that balance, even for a moment, you will be able to access power that Marcus cannot match." She placed a hand on Alara's marked arm. "Trust your wolf. It has waited 22 years for this moment. It will not let you fall." Alara entered the ring to absolute silence. Every eye in the hall was fixed on her. Hundreds of alphas and their companions watching to see if she was truly what she claimed, or just a pretender who would be exposed and destroyed. Marcus stood across from her, his expression neutral, but his body language. Speaking of coiled readiness, he had removed his shirt, his torso covered in scars that told the story of a long and violent life. "I will not insult you by going easy," he said quietly, his voice for her alone. "You are better than that." She nodded, appreciating his honesty. "I would not want you to." The high priestess stood at the edge of the ring, her hands raised. "The trial will last 10 minutes, or until one combatant yields or loses consciousness. Shifting is permitted. Lethal force is discouraged, but will be forgiven if accidental. Begin." She dropped her hands, and Marcus moved. He was fast, impossibly fast for someone his size, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. Ilara barely dodged the first strike, felt the wind of his fist passing a hair's breadth from her face. She countered with a kick that he blocked easily, his arm like iron. They separated, circling each other, and she could already feel the difference between training and actual combat. There was no safety, no holding back, just pure survival instinct. Marcus shifted mid-attack, his body flowing from human to wolf in less than a second, a skill that took most wolves years to master. His wolf form was huge, battle-scarred, gray and white fur bristling. He launched himself at her, jaws aimed for her throat, and Ilara had no choice but to shift as well. Her transformation was faster than before, the pain less intense, and she met him in her merged form, the in-between state where she was. Neither fully human nor fully beast. They collided with bone-jarring force, claws and teeth seeking vulnerable flesh, and Ilara realized with cold clarity that Marcus was not just testing her. He was genuinely trying to win, to prove the point that she was not ready, that the awakening meant nothing without experience to back it up. She was stronger than she expected, her merged form giving her power that pure wolf forms lacked. But Marcus had decades of battle wisdom, knew every trick, every feint, every way to exploit weakness. He drove her back across the ring, his attacks relentless, and her defenses were crumbling. Blood ran from a dozen shallow cuts, her breathing was labored, and she knew she was losing. The crowd was murmuring, excitement giving way to disappointment that the fight would be over so quickly. "Trust your wolf," the priestess had said. "Become partners." Ilara stopped trying to control her beast, stopped fighting it for dominance, and instead opened herself. Completely. "What do we do?" she asked her wolf. "How do we survive this?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Her wolf surged forward, but instead of taking over, it merged fully with her consciousness. Suddenly she could think with both her human intelligence and her wolf's instincts simultaneously, see with both perspectives, move with a grace and power that transcended either form alone. The world slowed down, or she sped up, and she could suddenly track Marcus's movements before he made them, read his body language, anticipate his strikes. When he lunged again, she was already moving, flowing around his attack like water, her claws raking across his exposed side. He yelped in surprise, blood blooming on his gray fur, and Ilara pressed her advantage. The fight changed in that moment. She was no longer defending, reacting, losing. She was hunting, and Marcus became the prey. Every lesson he had taught her came together in a symphony of violence, every instinct her wolf possessed combining with her human capacity for strategy. She moved faster than any normal wolf, struck harder than her size should allow, and most terrifying of all, she fought with a savage joy that made the watching alphas lean forward in their seats. This was not a frightened orphan trying to prove herself. This was the heir to an ancient bloodline showing exactly why her ancestors had been feared. Marcus shifted back to human, bleeding from multiple wounds, his expression mixing respect with alarm. "Yield," he said quietly, raising his hands. The word echoed in the sudden silence. Ilara stood in her merged form, breathing hard, her consciousness still intertwined with her wolf's, and for a long moment she did not want to stop. Her wolf wanted to keep fighting, to dominate, to prove beyond any doubt that they were superior. But her human side remembered why they were here. remembered that Marcus was her teacher, her ally, and that this was a trial, not a war. She forced the merge to release, shifting back to human form, and stood naked and trembling in the center of the ring, covered in blood and sweat and glory. The hall erupted. Some wolves were cheering, others arguing, but all were talking about what they had just witnessed. Ilara had not just lasted 10 minutes. She had defeated one of the kingdom's greatest warriors in less than 8. Someone threw a cloak around her shoulders, and she wrapped it gratefully around herself, her legs shaking so badly she could barely stand. Marcus approached her, limping slightly, and held out his hand. "You have the heart of a true warrior, and the power to match. I am honored to have trained you." She clasped his hand, overwhelmed by emotion she could not name. Alpha Cornelius looked like he had swallowed something poisonous, but he stood and addressed the hall. "The trial is complete. The girl has proven herself. The matter is settled." But Ilara barely heard him. Her eyes had found Damon across the room, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. His eyes were pure wolf gold, his control hanging by a thread, and the mate bond between them was screaming with need and pride and desperate longing. He looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, like he was seconds away from crossing the hall and claiming her in front of everyone. Politics and promises be damned. And she wanted him to. Her wolf was howling for it, demanding their mate acknowledge them, choose them, take them. For one perfect, terrible moment, she thought he might actually do it. Then Seraphina was there, placing her hand on Damon's arm, saying something in his ear, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. The contact broke whatever spell had held him, and Ilara watched his expression close off, watched him become the king again, instead of just a man held captive by a bond he could not fulfill. He nodded to Seraphina, then turned and left the great hall without a backward glance, and Ilara felt something in her chest crack. She had proven herself to every alpha in the kingdom, had shown them power they could not deny, had earned respect and recognition. But she had lost the only thing that mattered. Because in 3 days, Damon would marry another woman, and no amount of power or lineage would change that. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments. Did you see this ending coming? The 2 days before the wedding were a blur of misery. Ilara threw herself into training, pushing her body past its limits, anything to avoid thinking about what was coming. But at night, alone in her too large suite, she could not escape it. She could feel Damon through the mate bond, could sense his turmoil, his wolf fighting him constantly. She knew he was not sleeping, knew he was pacing his rooms like a caged animal, knew he was suffering as much as she was. But knowing did not help. The wedding preparations continued with unstoppable momentum, the entire palace buzzing with excitement about the grand ceremony that would unite the kingdom. The night before the wedding, Ilara could not bear to be inside the palace anymore. She slipped out through the gardens, past the guards who let her pass with knowing looks, and ran into the forest that bordered the royal grounds. She shifted as soon as she was hidden by trees, letting her wolf form carry her deeper into the wilderness, running until her muscles burned and her lungs ached. She did not want to think anymore. She did not want to feel the bond pulling at her heart. She just wanted to be a wolf, simple and uncomplicated, without politics or destiny or impossible love to worry about. She was so lost in her own pain that she did not sense the attack until it was almost too late. 5 wolves burst from the undergrowth, surrounding her, all of them larger than normal, all of them moving with the coordination of trained killers. Assassins. Ilara barely dodged. The first strike, claws raking across her shoulder instead of her throat. She shifted to her merged form instantly, the transformation fueled by fear and fury, and met their attack with everything she had. But they had ambushed her, chosen their moment perfectly, and she was already tired from training and heartbreak. The fight was vicious and desperate. Ilara took down 2 of the assassins, her newfound power making her a match for them individually, but they were working together, wearing her, down, driving her toward a cliff edge. She realized with cold horror that this was no random attack. Someone had planned this carefully, had waited until she was alone and vulnerable. "Seraphina," her wolf snarled. "That spoiled female sent them to kill us." One of the remaining assassins caught her across the ribs with a powerful strike, and she felt bones crack. Pain exploded through her body, and she stumbled, her vision going gray. This was it. This was how it ended. Murdered in the forest, the night before her mate married another woman. A roar shook the trees, so loud and primal that it froze every wolf in place. The massive black form of an alpha in his prime burst through the trees, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. King Alpha Daemon in his wolf form was a sight to inspire legends, easily twice the size of any normal wolf, his fur so dark it seemed to absorb light, his eyes burning gold with fury beyond measure. He hit the first assassin with enough force to snap the wolf's spine, tossing the body aside like it weighed nothing. The other two tried to run, but they had no chance. Daemon was rage incarnate, his mate threatened, and he showed them no mercy. When it was over, 5 bodies lay broken in the forest, and Daemon stood over Alara's collapsed form, sides heaving, still vibrating with the need to kill something else. He shifted back to human, dropping to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her injuries as if afraid to cause more damage. Alara, look at me." His voice was raw, desperate. She forced her eyes open, everything hurting, her merged form struggling to hold. "You came," she whispered. "You were supposed to be preparing for your wedding." His hands cupped her face, and the touch sent shockwaves through the mate bond, making them both gasp. "Do you truly think I could let you die? Do you think I care about anything in this world more than you?" His eyes were fierce, almost angry. "My wolf has been going. Insane? Screaming that you were in danger? I felt your pain through the bond. Did you think I would not come?" "But Seraphina," Alara tried to say, but he cut her off. "I know it was Seraphina who sent them. I have known for weeks that she has been plotting against you. I have had guards watching you in secret, trying to keep you safe without making it obvious. But tonight they failed, and you almost died because I was too concerned with politics to do what I should have done from the beginning." He pulled her carefully into his arms, holding her against his bare chest, and the contact made the mate bond sing even through her pain. "I am done pretending. I am done sacrificing my soul for political convenience. If accepting you means war, then there will be war. If claiming my mate destroys alliances, then they were never worth having." Alara's heart stuttered. "What are you saying?" Daemon looked at her with such intensity that she could barely breathe. "I am saying that tomorrow there will not be a wedding. I am saying that I am going to stand before every alpha in the kingdom and tell them that you are my true mate, my chosen queen, and anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly." His thumb brushed across her cheek, wiping away blood and tears. "I am saying that I love you, Alara of the Forsaken bloodline, and I am choosing you. I am choosing us, even if it costs me my crown." The words she had dreamed of hearing had given up hope of ever. Hearing washed over her like a benediction. But she had to be sure, had to know he understood what he was offering. "Your people need peace. The alliance with the Northern Territories." He silenced her with a kiss, fierce and claiming and full of weeks of denied passion. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "My people need a king who leads with integrity, not one who breaks the most sacred bond our kind acknowledges for political gain. They need you, whether they know it yet or not. Your power, your bloodline, what you represent. And I need you more than I need air." Alara felt tears streaming down her face, her wolf howling with joy, even as her body screamed with pain. "The other alphas will not accept this easily. Cornelius will demand compensation, maybe even challenge your right to rule." Daemon smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "Let them try. I am the Alpha King not because of my bloodline, but because I am the strongest wolf in 5 generations. Anyone who wants to dispute my choice can meet me in single combat, and we will see how their objections fare against my teeth in their throat." He carefully lifted her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. "But first, we get you to the healers. Then we prepare for the storm that is coming. Together." As he carried her back through the forest, Elara leaned her head against his shoulder and let herself finally, truly believe that this was real. The mate bond wrapped around them both like a warm blanket. No longer painful but complete, satisfied, right? Her wolf was purring contentedly, finally at peace. They had their mate. They were going home. Everything else would work itself out. It had to. Because she could not imagine a world where this feeling, this perfect rightness, was not meant to be. The palace erupted into chaos when Daemon walked through the front gates carrying a blood-covered Elara. Healers were summoned immediately, along with guards, advisors, and within minutes, a furious Alpha Cornelius and his daughter. Elara was taken to the healing chambers, where wolf magic and medicine worked to mend her broken ribs and various wounds. Through it all, Daemon never left her side, holding her hand, radiating such deadly intent that even the healers moved carefully around him. By the time Cornelius and Seraphina were admitted to the room, Elara was mostly healed, sitting up in bed with Daemon standing beside her like a sentinel. "What is the meaning of this?" Cornelius demanded, his face red with anger. "I was told there was an attack, that my daughter is being accused." Daemon's voice was cold enough to freeze blood. "Your daughter hired assassins to murder my mate in the forest tonight. They failed. Now I am left with a decision about what to do with traitors who operate within my own court." Seraphina went pale, but she rallied quickly. "That is absurd. I have done no such thing. Where is your proof? This orphan girl has probably fabricated the entire thing to sabotage my wedding. The assassins are dead, but they will be identified," Daemon said flatly. "And there will be an investigation that I suspect will lead directly back to you. But honestly, I do not need proof. My wolf knows. I know. You have been attempting to harm Elara since the moment she was marked, and I have tolerated it because I was trying to maintain political balance. That tolerance has ended." He looked at Cornelius. "The wedding is cancelled. The alliance between our houses is dissolved. You have 3 days to remove yourself and your daughter from my lands. If you are still here after that, I will consider it an act of war." Cornelius looked like he might actually challenge Daemon right there, his own wolf rising to the surface. But even furious, he was not stupid enough to take on the Alpha King. "This is madness. You would throw away decades of peace, the stability of the entire kingdom, for a girl you have known for weeks?" Daemon's hand tightened on Elara's. "I would throw away my crown for her if necessary. She is my true mate, the other half of my soul. I will not dishonor that bond for political convenience, not anymore. Now get out of my sight before I forget that we were once allies and treat you as you deserve for threatening what is mine." The Alpha of the Northern Territories stared at him for a long moment, then grabbed his daughter's arm and dragged her from the room. Seraphina was screaming obscenities and threats, but her father silenced her with a growl. When they were gone, Daemon finally allowed himself to relax slightly, sitting on the edge of Elara's bed. "That could have gone better," he said wryly. Elara laughed, wincing at the movement. "You just ended a major alliance and threatened war with the Northern Territories. How much worse could it have gotten?" He smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his normally severe face into something warm and beautiful. "They could have challenged me immediately instead of leaving to lick their wounds and plan their next move. This way we have time to prepare." "We," Elara repeated softly, testing the word. Daemon leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. "We, always we, from now on. You and me and whatever chaos follows." He kissed her gently, carefully, mindful of her injuries. "When you are healed, there will be a proper ceremony. Not a political marriage, but a true mating. where I mark you before the pack and the moon and claim you as mine for all to see. But even without the ceremony, you are already my queen. My wolf claimed you the moment you touched the ancestral stone. I was just too blind to accept it immediately. Alara felt warmth spreading through her chest, a happiness so intense it was almost painful. What about the other alphas? Some of them will support Cornelius, especially those who fear what my bloodline represents. Daemon shrugged. Then they will learn a valuable lesson about what happens when they underestimate a king who has nothing left to lose. I have been playing politics my entire reign, carefully balancing powers, making compromises I hated to maintain peace. But peace built on lies and suppression is not real peace. It is just delayed conflict. Maybe it is time we face those conflicts head-on and build something honest instead. Over the next weeks, the kingdom fractured exactly as predicted. Several alphas sided with Cornelius, declaring that Daemon had acted impulsively and dishonored binding agreements. Others supported their king, some because they truly believed in the mate bond, others because they feared his power too much to oppose him. The realm teetered on the edge of civil war, but through it all, Daemon never wavered, never showed regret. He formalized Alara's position as his chosen mate, gave her a seat on his council, and began actively seeking out information about the Forsaken bloodline and why it had been suppressed. What they discovered changed everything. The Forsaken bloodline had not been destroyed because they were dangerous, but because they were prophesied to unite the Lycan race, to end the system of competing alphas and territories in favor of a single, stronger nation. The ruling houses had eliminated them to maintain their own power, and then erased the history to hide their crime. Alara was not just powerful, she was the key to transforming their entire society. And when word of this spread through the kingdom, carried by the high priestess who remembered the true histories, even some of Cornelius's allies began to reconsider their position. The mating ceremony took place under the full moon, with half the kingdom watching. Daemon marked Alara before the ancestral stone, the same stone that had awakened her power. And when he bit her shoulder in the ritual claiming, their bond blazed so bright that every wolf present felt the echo of it. She marked him in return, her wolf surging forward to leave her own claim on his skin, and the reciprocal bond locked into place with a force that sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd. They were joined, truly and completely, and the power that resulted from their union was undeniable. Alpha Cornelius, faced with a choice between war and acceptance, eventually bent the knee. Not with grace, not with joy, but with the recognition that he could not win against an Alpha King who had unlocked the legendary power of the Forsaken bloodline through his mate bond with its last heir. Seraphina was exiled to Woe, the northern territories, forbidden from ever entering the royal lands again. Some whispered she was planning revenge from afar, but Alara could not bring herself to care. She had everything she wanted, a mate who loved her fiercely, a wolf who was finally free, a future that was hers to shape. 1 year after the awakening ceremony that changed her life, Alara stood on the palace balcony overlooking the kingdom that had once considered her less than nothing. She wore the crown now, not the crown of fangs that Daemon inherited, but a new crown forged specifically for her, set with stones that matched the color of her marks. Beside her, Daemon wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "The simple life you had before all this?" Alara thought about it honestly, then shook her head. That was not a life. That was just surviving. This, with you, with purpose and power and belonging, this is living. He kissed the top of her head. The other. Alphas are still nervous about you. They see what you can do, what you represent, and they fear change. Alara smiled, a fierce, confident expression that would have been impossible a year ago. Let them be nervous. Let them remember that power without honor means nothing, that traditions that harm must be challenged, that destiny can find you even when you are invisible. We will reshape this kingdom together, make it into something better, something worthy of our children. His hand dropped too. Her stomach, where new life was just beginning, too small to sense yet, except through the bond they shared. Our children, he breathed. The first heirs born of the Alpha King and the forsaken bloodline in 300 years. Alara leaned into his embrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of crimson and gold, the same colors that had marked her awakening. She thought about the terrified girl who had stood in the ceremony hall, convinced she was nothing, convinced she did not belong. That girl was gone, transformed by fire and love, and the discovery of power she never knew she possessed. In her place stood a queen, a warrior, a wolf who had claimed her destiny instead of letting it claim her. And beside her stood the one person who saw her, truly saw her. From the very beginning. No one spoke when the ancient beast chose her over the Alpha King, but they would speak now. They would tell stories of the orphan who became queen, of the mate bond that changed a kingdom, of the forsaken bloodline that rose from extinction to reshape the world. They would remember, and they would know that destiny is not about where you start, but about what you become when you finally stop being invisible and claim the power that was always yours.